Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is going to be a fun episode with my two buddies, some of my two favorites, Lee Murphy and Craig Steele of Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters. Guys, how you doing?
Doing good, Jay. How are you doing today?
Good, Lee. I'm pretty pumped. We're getting some rain showers down here in Phoenix. I don't know about you guys, but you know, I'm more optimistic talking about elk season coming up and application season than I was this time last year. I'm sure Steele's going to have all kinds of charts and graphs and all kinds of data to throw at us and analyze the moisture and what have you, like he always does. But, you know, just a general feel, you know, going into this application, to me it feels like we've gotten a lot more moisture compared to certainly last year and certainly other dry years. I'm curious both you guys' take on the situation that we sit in with, you know, being, you know, 10 or 12 days away. I guess the deadline's February 12th to apply for Arizona elk and antelope. Where do you see the current conditions sitting right now?
It's definitely better than last year. I mean, you could take a piss and it'd be better than last year. So it's looking good. The first part of November was kind of dry. December was all right. I think we had one storm in December, and then we had some storms in January. And then now we had a storm yesterday, and we had a storm coming in today, just like you said. So it's looking good. If you look at all the maps that I have out, and I'm looking at from one year to the next, I've got 2014 to 2019 from November to the end of January for each of those. So let's call 2014 that you know, January year. This year looks more like, on the precipitation maps, looks more like a 2015 or a 2016. Nothing even remotely close to what we had last year. So that's good. Hopefully it keeps going. Excited about that, but then when I was trying to prep for this podcast, I looked at the outlook, the climate outlook discussion on the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center, and they kind of changed it for February, and now they're calling for a light or nominal El Nino, which on their month of February outlook is actually showing a 40% less chance of normal precipitation for the month of February, and then after that for March and April it's just equal chances. So basically it's a crapshoot, because I mean, we've had two storms now technically, if you count this one and the one we had the other day in February. So I know that last storm we probably got anywhere from half inch to 3/4 of an inch over in Kingman. I don't know what you got over there, Lee, in Chino, but so it's looking good. Hopefully it keeps coming. The draw is so early. It's all we can do is base, you know, what we have right now.
Right.
And right now it looks good. We can't, you know, just like these guys changed their mind on February, and then, you know, not saying basically it's a crapshoot for March and April. We don't know. If we get another storm the end of this month, and then two more in March and one in April of half inch or better, then it's probably going to be as good as it can probably get, you know. But at this point, I think Lee and I talked about this the other day, it's safe to say that, you know, it's not going to be remotely close to what it was like last year as far as from an elk and, you know, strip and kaibab deer standpoint. It's just last year was just so horrible, you know.
Yeah. What did you guys notice I know you did a bunch of over-the-counter deer hunts in January, and you guys always like doing those, and you've been out in the field. Like, what have you seen out there on the landscape as far as, is there anything noticeable? Is it greener than, obviously, last year, but is it more of a normal type situation, an average type year, or what are you actually seeing out there on the ground right now?
I think, Jake, compared to, in the last 5 years or so, 2017 was really, really wet and probably one of the best precipitation winters we've had in a long time. But this year's, I wouldn't say it's too far behind that. There's a lot of fillery growing out there. The stuff that grows this time of year and does green up this time of year on the desert floor looks good. It's a good indicator. So I think that right now the roots of all the plants and that are, going to be browse plants, they've got a good foundation. So looking forward, it's just going to be a matter of now we've got enough to start the spring. It's just going to be a matter of the timing of the storms. If we get something in March, that'll be a huge boost. Elk will have big back ends, if there's some good time storms in March. But I think we have enough we can safely say it's going to be an average horn growth year this year.
Yeah.
Another thing too, people don't talk about a whole lot is the antelope. I don't think anybody realized how bad last year was going to be until everything was wrapped up for the season. I've never seen a year affect the antelope. They say that antelope horn structure doesn't get affected by the drought, but last year was pretty rough for antelope as well, not just horn growth, but health and fawn survival rates. So this winter we're having should help them rebound too.
So guys, with what I'm hearing you talk about, one thing that we haven't mentioned is I feel like, late August, September, October, actually during the hunting seasons this year, we actually had some storms, and it seems like that, the elk would have went into the winter with pretty good feed conditions, which I think has to play a big role moving into the winter and then coming out of the winter now, we're roughly February 4th right now, and, we're moving into spring slowly, but I think conditions, and I'd like your opinion on, you guys were out there in Unit 10 during the elk hunt and such. I mean, how was that? Obviously a late summer monsoon. The rains came late, but they did come pretty good. Curious your thoughts. We're talking, that Unit 10 country that you guys like so much for your elk hunts. Talk a little bit about that and how that could play into this year as well moving forward.
Go ahead, Lee.
Go ahead. Well, Unit 10, Unit 9, Unit 7, a lot of those units have the same type of habitat, and, those late summer rains helped a great deal, Jay, but you also got to look back at what happened the 12 months prior to that. Just because it rained a lot and the feed was good, all the wildlife was really struggling. I don't think I've ever seen, that I can remember back, seeing antelope, deer, elk struggle like they did last year. So just because they got a lot of rain in the late summer and the fall doesn't mean it's just you can snap your fingers and everything feels better. We saw that with the elk rut. I think it affected the antelope and the deer rut as well. Even this last December and January, the animals' health, they don't just rebound right away. They're what the nutrients they get out of the feed is not that strong. They have to get a lot of it every day. It takes a long time for them to rebound. So yeah, it's a huge help to get that rain, but I think we could see lingering effects of this in a couple different ways for years to come. Fawn survival rates, calf survival rates on the elk. So it's huge to have that rain. It kind of got us out of that dry slump, but it's not just going to be a overnight fix.
Okay. So when we look at Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters, which is you guys' guide business, you focus on a handful of units. If one of you could kind of go through the units. Let's talk elk first, and then we'll talk antelope later in the podcast. But let's talk elk first, talk about the units that you guys like to guide in, and, you know, talk a little bit about if there's any changes in the tag numbers. You know, I'll have follow-up questions and such, but let's kind of talk trends, you know, unit trending up, trending down, you know, anything that you're seeing out there. And feel free, you guys both, to kind of ham and egg it if you want, if you have anything to add on, you know, something, whether it be Lee or Craig starting out, just kind of ham and egg it and talk about the elk units that you like. Obviously, there's people listening that are, you know, kind of waiting on every word you say to talk about these units. So why don't we go ahead and let you guys talk about the EPO units that you guys like.
Okay, well, I'll kind of go through a summary of the units, and then I'll let Craig elaborate because he's better at that than I am. So, you know, we like the 7, 8, 9, and 10 units primarily for elk. We do a little bit in the block units. We're pretty selective in all those units, though. We don't do a lot of hunts. We have a really limited amount of guides that we trust in each one of those units. Craig and I included in that, obviously, but we like those units. They're close to us. We have the ability. Those are the units we like. I don't really think there's a bunch of changes in those units this year as far as permit numbers and everything. We hope that there will be, you know, I think there's a lot of holdover bulls. Other guys have talked about this on the podcast, you know, the bulls that didn't get shot last year that were broken or short in the back, didn't grow well. I think there's a good opportunity for there to be some holdover bulls this year in all of those units, and they have one more year of age class to go along with that we could see a good rebound in the quality of antler growth this year.
Lee, when you talk about those units, you obviously mentioned 7, 8, 9, and 10, and you know, some in the block units. Obviously, from my perspective, you've got 9 and 10, which are what I would consider the top tier units, and then, you know, the 7, 8s, and even the block units are kind of more of those mid-tier units. Talk a little bit about people's expectation as far as, you know, the difference in the top tier units and the mid-tier units. In other words, you know, rut hunting in unit 9 and 10 compared to rut hunting, you know, archery in, you know, 7 or 8. From my perspective, there's a big difference in, you know, elk seem to be more finicky in the mid-tier units. They seem to be a little more skittish in those mid-tier units. Talk a little bit about that, you know, from top tier to mid-tier, what people should expect.
Okay. Yeah, I think in that list of units that I just mentioned, you know, 9 and 10, I think are, you know, most people think those are the best units, and they probably are. I guess where we kind of break it down is we get a lot of guys that ask us where to apply each year, and it kind of depends on their expectations of what kind of bull they want to kill and hunt, how many points they have. So we'll recommend 9 and 10 usually to guys that have a lot of points or max points. They've waited a long time. They don't need to be told where to put in. 7 and 8 offer a little bit more of an opportunity for a guy that has less points. They're a little easier to draw. 7 and 8 do get more pressure. They don't have as good of age class. They can be more finicky. But, you know, there's guys that may not want to wait 20 years to draw a tag, and they're still good quality units, and you can still kill good quality bulls there. It just takes a little more work and, you know, a little more luck to you know, to sort through all the other hunters and hunt pressure there is. But the block units, pretty limited amount of tags there, so it's harder to draw, but those units, both those block units are close to Craig and I. We grew up in them, so you can dig out some good bulls in there. But we're very particular about which clients we tell to put in and where, and a lot of it just depends on their expectations and how long they want to wait to get drawn and that sort of thing.
Let's talk about Unit 10. You guys both really like Unit 10, and most archery seasons, most early rifle seasons will find you guys hunting in Unit 10. You guys have access to a couple of different private ranches there that you guys manage. You also have the ability to guide on public, and then of course there's the big boquillas, which all outfitters have, if they buy the access permit, have the ability to guide on the boquillas. Would you guys break down kind of your private land opportunities there in Unit 10, talk a little bit about, from your perspective, how those properties shine compared to, say, the public, and what people could maybe expect when hunting those private plots as opposed to maybe hunting just the general public areas in Unit 10?
Well, anytime you have private land, it's obviously you can limit the access. So those two ranches we have put together there that we've been hunting on, I've been guiding on those for 10 years now. It limits the pressure. There's only certain people that the ranch allows to hunt on there that hunt with us. So when you negate the hunt pressure, other hunters, it improves your success rates a great deal. So that's kind of a no-brainer. Hunting on the public side of 10, the central part of it, the eastern part of it that we spend most of our time on, or all of our time for the elk, there's a lot of good opportunity in there. There's a lot of thick country that holds good bulls, and you got to work hard at it. But we kind of like that side of the unit. So I'll let Craig. If Craig got anything to add on that?
Probably, yeah. The biggest difference is, private versus public. Obviously, is, like Lee said, it's the hunt pressure. Quality of bulls scattered throughout the unit. You can find a, big bull and pretty much any corner of Unit 10. They're just scattered out. So the quality is, the same. It's just the hunt pressure, and some of the like the forest stuff on the east side is real thick, and it can hold some really big bulls. When they're rutting hard, it can be good. But it can also be difficult. Part of the advantage of hunting the private versus public is on the private. The elk, will stay out in the open. They'll just act more naturally versus, on the public side, you just don't know what's being pressured and what's not, and you can still have a great hunt. On the public side, it's very dependent upon where guys are hunting that year. How many residents drew, how many locals drew, how many non-resident DIY guys, drew versus guys that are going to go with a guide. And I was looking at the numbers today, and I had a client or a prospective client ask about the hunt success in Unit 10 versus Unit 9, and I think one of the misnomers with Unit 10 is just that there's just elk everywhere. It's a big unit, and there's areas that have elk and there's areas that don't, and if there's and that's dependent upon where the monsoon hits, where the feed is, where the hunt pressure is, where cattle are. So there's a bunch of different factors that come into play, and I think versus like Unit 9, where it's big, but it's not as big, and it just like the elk density is a little bit more easier to grasp as far as if you're going on your own, and you kind of look at the hunt success there. I would love to see the hunt success with a guide in Unit 10 versus DIY from a non-resident perspective. Obviously, if you're a local, guy or somebody that has, 4 weeks of vacation time and you're willing to spend, a week or two scouting, Unit 10 might be a good call for you, but you need to scout. You need to find where the moisture is hit. Hopefully you can get away from, people and have a good hunt, because there's definitely big bulls scattered out throughout the entire unit. So that's, I guess, kind of my take on, the hunt pressure and type of bulls, public versus private, and so on and so forth.
What would you guys say? Like, I'm hearing a lot of people saying that they feel like Unit 10 is trending up, meaning that the bull quality is getting better. Obviously, coming off of a horrific year like last year, it's probably hard to make that judgment. But if I ask you guys whether the Unit 10 bull quality is trending up or down or flat, what would each one of you say?
I would say that it's definitely trending upward. Anytime you manage the permit numbers like the department did a couple years ago when they cut the tags back down to 40 early rifle, and now they're down to 100 archery. Those are two hunts that really get focused on hard. The guys that draw those tags, the guys that guide on those tags, they really put a lot of work into it, and especially the early rifle. You have 100 early rifle tags, and there was a lot of bulls getting whacked, and it killed the age class. And we're a couple of years into that being limited, the permits being limited back down to lower numbers, and so that's the whole key. There's a lot of contributors to antler growth and big bulls, but the biggest, most important one is age class. And so age class is on the uptrend in 10. So it's definitely going to come back, and as long as they leave those permit tags where they're at. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the key is you just, I think 2016 is the first year they had the big cutback, so 16, 17, 18, and now we're going into 19, so that's 4 years. I think in another 4 years, if they keep the tags back, that, we're going to start to really see that consistently. It's just a matter of, does it stay that way? And you just never know from year to year, if the tag numbers are going to stay that way. We always root for that, because like Lee said, man, that's the number one thing. That's the number one thing is age class. And, let's be honest, hunters are better. More guys, guides are better, equipment's better, information's more out there, and we're just more efficient. And, there's just not, there's stuff getting through. I'm not making it sound doom and gloom, but we're just more efficient, and we're better hunters than we were, 15, 20 years ago, let alone 30 years ago. And it's the age class is just so big, and we can't stress that enough. It's what we like to see we would like to see for the entire state is just better age class on our animals as a whole. So,
go ahead, Jay. I seem to think that Unit 10 is on the uptrend. But I wonder if, yes, it's on the uptrend, but it seems like I'm hearing a lot of people jumping ship from Unit 9, and now they're going to apply for Unit 10. And I just wonder if, obviously you both are saying it's on an uptick and it's trending upwards, but I wonder if it merits, or is it warranted that people, jump from Unit 9 being their first choice the last 5, 6, 7 years to all of a sudden Unit 10. I think it's fun for us to armchair quarterback and talk about the hype, but it almost seems like I'm hearing hype in Unit 10, and I just am a little bit skeptical as to, can it really just slap Unit 9 like a stepchild and say, yeah, Unit 10 is just going to be a better unit. I don't know that that's the case. I like Unit 9 and Unit 10. I've hunted them both a lot. And I feel like on a year like this, Unit 9 could come back with a vengeance and slap Unit 10 around. I'm curious you guys' thoughts as to the hype, and wondering if you've heard kind of an a trend upwards in guys moving from different units to Unit 10, and Unit 10 kind of being the poster child. Are you hearing that as well?
Yeah, I hear that, this year a lot, Jay. Guys saying exactly what you're talking about. And I'll make a point here that I've said this for years, probably 7-8 years now. What a lot of people don't realize is the type of country that 9 and 10 share, even 7 West, 18A. Some of these bulls go 30, 40 miles for the rut and stay there, into October. A lot of times they make their way back to wherever they came from by November, but 9 and 10 share a lot of the same bulls for the rut. I've been out in the flats of Unit 10, antelope hunting, and glass bulls wandering during the middle of the day before the rut, coming out of 9 or going to 9. So I've made the point for years now that I don't really see a whole lot of difference in 9 and 10 as far as the quality of bulls, because I think a lot of the bulls share country between the units. So that's kind of my opinion, at least on the eastern side of 10 and a good part of 9. I think they share country. Same thing with 7 West. I think bulls travel back and forth between those units there as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think, Lee, years ago, one of your clients killed a big 400-inch bull. I believe in 9 that was, all summer long had photographs, 25 miles away in Unit 10. And I think that goes to your point of those elk, move around. Fortunately, Unit 9 and 10 have, limited their numbers and kept them lower. Let's say that if Unit 9 just stayed at 100 and, they jumped Unit 10 up to 300 archery tags or even 200 like they used to have and 100 early rifle tags, it greatly affects Unit 9. So if we can keep both of the numbers down in both of the units, I think that would be best for, the conglomerate of both units. But it's just funny how, you start hearing the hype of Unit 10, which I'd like nothing more than Unit 10 to be the way it was back in 05, the last time I had a tag in there. It was absolutely unbelievable. But I think you guys have both made the point that, 4 or 5 years ago that creep in tag numbers up to 200 archery tags and 100 early rifle tags and a bunch of late rifle tags really knocked it down in 10, and it's slowly but surely coming back. It'll be interesting to see, with decent timely storms, if, Unit 10 can get back to producing those, 380 plus bulls consistently like it used to be back in, I would say like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where, there was always a handful, 5, 6, 7 bulls that were, 380 plus that were shot. So from a trophy hunter's perspective, I can't wait to see if that's what's going to happen. I hope it does. I think it's good for our state. I think as many people that cry for opportunity, our state kind of sets itself apart with trophy quality, and I think the Game and Fish has played around with that a little bit. In a lot of these units with a lot of late elk tags. And, I think once Arizona loses that reputation, it could create a problem for the Game and Fish. So hopefully they'll keep the tag numbers in check. And, they would argue that they have outside factors that affect, their tag allocations and what have you. But, from my perspective, I just hope they keep everything in check, and I'd rather them harvest less bulls and less cows than more, and let some of those animals grow up and, let Arizona regain its trophy status of, the best state in the country for elk. That's what I would like myself. I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I know. I mean, I'm on board 100% with that. I don't think a lot of people understand, like, on elk age classes, 8, 9 years old is, the bulls are just hitting their stride, I think some people might think, 4, 5, 6 years old is mature, and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, these bulls can, that's when they get those big old necks and 5-gallon barrels for necks, and big old paunchy belly, and they're going to be at their max, and just it's such an awesome animal to watch when they get to there. It's unfortunate that over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of young bulls. We've killed some, because the tags are there, and that's sometimes all that's there, and so hopefully, they can continue to keep the tags down, and they're eventually going to have to raise the price, for resident and non-resident, and I'm completely fine with that. They haven't raised the price in a while, because they have to generate the revenue to get paid and to fund their stuff. So hopefully, I would rather see them keep these tag numbers down, and even cut some more, and increase the price than jerk it back around to 200 archery elk tags in 10 and 150 in 9, and 50 early rifle bull tags in 9, stuff like that. So I'm on board with that 100%. I'm sure Lee is too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big discussion for the Game and Fish, and they have a really tough job balancing that opportunity versus trophy quality. And I've got a pretty good inside look at that in the last 5 years. I've had a lot of meetings with those guys, and it's a slippery slope for them. There's a lot of us crying out for age class and lower permit numbers and increase the quality, but there is still a lot of people that voice opportunity too. So they've got their hands full. I'm on board though. I would love to see more trophy management in Arizona, more quality. And I think there's a lot of people that want opportunity, but they still want to see big animals. They want a chance to kill big animals, but when it comes down to it, they'll go out there and hunt for a couple days, and then they kind of lose interest and they'll just shoot whatever. I'd like to see more guys be a little more selective, but can't control that.
Yeah.
Game and Fish has to make.
You mentioned for the last 5 years. Let's talk about your role with the Big Boquillas Ranch. From my perspective, you are a perfect liaison, a middleman between the owners and the leasee on the Big Boquillas Ranch, and you've been doing, in my opinion, a great job trying to kind of help the go-between between the public hunts on Unit 10 and keeping the ranch open, and a proponent for keeping the ranch open for sportsmen. Can you talk a little bit about your role on the Big Boquillas Ranch and what that involves?
Yeah, I'd be glad to answer a few questions on that. Mainly what my job is there's an operating agreement between the department, the leasee, and the owner of the ranch, which is the Navajo Nation. A lot of people get things confused there. They don't know who owns it or who runs the cattle, but there's 3 partners, and the ranch owner is the Navajo, and the leasee is Troy Livestock, and then the department. I work for the leasee as a subcontractor, and my job is mainly to coordinate with the Game and Fish Department on behalf of the ranch regarding the permit sales, the permit stats, how many we're selling, who bought the permits. We have a very open communication there about what's going on with the permit sales. We have, as part of that operating agreement, we have to let the Game and Fish know who's bought permits, how many we've sold. Also, permit enforcement and patrol. The Game and Fish patrols the ranch for us. I'm constantly in contact with those guys about what's going on with patrol. I do a little bit of that myself, the patrol. Ranch rule revisions. Another part of my job is I have to meet with the Game and Fish a couple times every year, but we always go through, and we're going to have our meeting here in a couple weeks. We look at the ranch rules every year, and there's several guys from the Game and Fish that I meet with. We look at the ranch rules. We look at see what's happened in the past year, if there's anything we need to revise in the language or anything like that. And then I also coordinate with them about any improvement projects that the Game and Fish Department does on the ranch and coordinate that with the ranch.
Lee, from my perspective, asking you a few questions, and you can choose to answer or not, but you are a proponent of the ranch remaining open and the public being able to use and utilize the ranch, correct?
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. It benefits the ranch best to be open to the limited amount of public that is on there, and that's the permit system kind of self-limits that. There needs to be a volume of hunters on there to manage the elk. That's one of the big concerns, is managing the population of the elk. So you need to have enough volume of hunters on there to do that and take care of the elk, because that's a huge impact on that ranch, is the amount of elk on there and the grazing competitiveness that they have against the cattle.
From a perspective of if a third party was trying to say, well, Lee Murphy and Craig Steele with Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters, they run the show on the Big Boquillas and they're blocking everybody out, and is that a true statement? And or from my perspective, you guys don't even hardly ever even guide on the Big Boquillas because you've got other properties that you do exclusively guiding on.
Yeah, there's always the talking heads out there that have their conspiracy theories and everything, but my very first meeting with the Game and Fish, Jay, when I took the position, before I even met with them, I thought about a lot of those kind of things, what the public was going to say, me being an outfitter and having that position. So my very first meeting, that was the first question. At the time, it was Tom Finley, who was the regional supervisor for Kingman. That's the first thing he wanted to ask me is, well, what's your position going to be on that? Are you going to guide on the ranch? And I already had my answer ready that, my choice, I'm not giving up any privilege to do that, but my choice is going to be not to, because I know what some of the talking heads would say about it. So I don't guide any clients on there. I haven't guided any clients on the ranch. Some of the guys that work for EPO have hunted with their families over there, and maybe they've guided a couple of antelope hunts over there, but we don't do any elk hunts over there. Haven't done any elk hunts over there. Now, that's not to say that we've given up the privilege to hunt over there. Family member or something draws over there, but we simply just don't need to. We have other places that we prefer to guide. Big Bow's a great place to hunt, don't get me wrong, but it still gets a great deal of the pressure in Unit 10.
Yeah, makes sense. Can you let people know where they can find out more information about the permit structure and process, and how that works, whether they go on the website or do they send you an email, or how that works?
Yeah, they can just simply get on the Hunt Big Bow Ranch website. A lot of people, that's a lot of what I do throughout the year, is answer emails by people asking questions about the permit process or how it works. A lot of people could save themselves 3 or 4 minutes if they just read through the ranch rules. It's not just rules. The ranch rules actually is, in a nutshell, how the program works. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to read through that. Read through it carefully. It answers most of the questions that I get by email every year. If people just read through that, it explains a lot of it. We understand that, obviously, it's hard to draw a tag in Arizona or Unit 10. There's guys that wait a lot of years. So every year there's guys that haven't bought a permit in past years, and they have questions, and we're happy to answer that. And if you're new to the system and new to the permitting process, there's a lot of questions sometimes, but just take some time to read the ranch rules is the main thing, and it gives you a pretty good understanding of how the access program works. And then there's a link on there you can click to email me to ask a question if you don't find it in the ranch rules.
Good stuff. I'd like to kind of move on to talking about, we talked a little bit about the private land, the difference in hunting in Unit 10 on the private land versus the public land. You guys have done a great job videoing some of the hunts and seeing some of those big clumps of elk that are balled up in the bugling. Just a little bit of a recap from last year compared to most years. Was your bugling way down compared to most average years last year in Unit 10?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a very sporadic, smaller pockets of elk, and just the activity was definitely down. It seemed like a few of the bulls, bigger bulls, just either didn't even show up or didn't act normal, so to speak, weren't tending cows. And then there was some that were, obviously, but it seemed very sporadic.
On a normal year like this year's probably going to be, do you anticipate getting some of those videos where, you've got 70, 80, 90 cows and, 12, 15, 18 bulls just going in and out of the herd and have, I've watched a lot of your videos on your website and such, and it just looks like it's just mayhem out there.
I mean, I think Lee and I discussed kind of the elk rut too, is a lot of guys will talk about the peak of the rut almost like it's a mountain and then it drops off. It's more like a roller coaster, to get to the top of that mountain. So I think it's definitely going to be better. I still think personally that a good early, strong, consistent monsoon is probably one of the most influential factors in a good, strong elk rut on a normal year. So I know I'll be watching for that, but definitely because of the pressure and the elk not getting bumped, it gives them an opportunity to just be normal elk. So they're just not always, scattered out and pressured and in that high pressure mode where they're, trying to survive versus trying to breed and tend cows. And even though the elk rut on the public side can get going too, it's just more consistent, a lot more consistent. The elk just seem to be, they're just more natural, just kind of like your Colorado stuff.
Yeah, and so I would say, like, from my perspective, the elk out on the public side or even on the big bow where the public is allowed to hunt, in other words, those big, large clumps of elk would still bed out in the open and rut out in the open, but you would have the public literally driving right into them and scattering them. Correct me if I'm wrong, one of the benefits of having those big, large tracts of private land is you guys as outfitters and guides can manage how you guys hunt those elk, and there's areas where you'll let them congregate and be elk, and you won't go driving right through and you won't pressure them. So and that's what we do on the ranch in Colorado is we try and let them in those rutting areas, let them have those areas, and we work the fringes and let them have kind of that sanctuary where the only reason that the public doesn't see that out on the public side is basically guys can't help themselves and would literally just drive right into them and scatter them like quail, whereas if you have the ability to kind of manage how you hunt those elk, you can allow them to, get all lathered up and get in a frenzy and balled up and let them be elk, which attracts other elk, which then attracts other, bulls, which attracts big bulls. Is that basically how you guys kind of operate there on the property, is let them do their thing, and bulls bugling starts attracting other elk, and it just becomes a big meatball by the end of the season?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate, Jay. We try and hunt very low impact, and be very, very specific about our strikes, if you will, about when we go in and try and stalk something. If it's just not a good situation, we'll just watch or back out, and let the elk do their thing, and it really improves your harvest success by doing that, and your opportunities for hunters. Like you said earlier, a lot of guys, they see elk, they hear elk bugle, and they just can't help themselves. They just got to go after them. They don't think, they don't think about the wind. They don't think about what's, a couple steps down the trail with the hunt. And so sometimes you got to really be patient. It's hard to do, but it'll help you in the long run.
Guys, I want to take a quick second here to thank my sponsors, but I want you guys to be thinking, because I'm going to put you both on the hot seat. I'm going to basically go through units 7, 8, 9, and 10. We're going to talk archery, early rifle, and the late hunt, and I'm going to put you on the hot seat as far as what hunters should expect as far as trophy quality this year, whether it be, 300 to 330 or 330 to 340 or whatever that may be. So start thinking about that while I'm thanking the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com. I want to thank my friend Cody Nelson, who's the optics manager, the optics authority there at GoHunt.com Gear Shop. And any of you out there that are interested in a new pair of binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, tripods, etc., reach out to Cody at 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. Or you can send him an email directly at optics@gohunt.com. And Cody has routinely been taking care of the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners. If you mention my name, if he doesn't, let me know, and I'll go give him a black eye. But he has been routinely taking care of the listeners, so make sure to reach out to Cody. I want to thank GoHunt for their sponsorship. I also want to remind you guys, this is application season, and if you're not a GoHunt Insider member, you can go to gohunt.com/JScott. You can sign up for the Insider and automatically get a $50 GoHunt Gear Shop gift card right away just for signing up. It is the best Western resource out there, best hunting resource out there for application strategies and draw odds across the Western states. I also want to thank KUIU.com. That's KUIU.com. KUIU Ultralight Hunting. That's the gear that I wear on all my hunts. CanyonCoolers.com, based right out of Flagstaff, Arizona. If you use the JScott19 promo code, you're going to get a 10% discount on all orders. Phonescope.com, that is the company, the digiscoping adapter that I use for all of my videos and all my videos and photos that you see on my Instagram account. If you use the JScott19 promo code, you're going to get a 10% discount there. And then onxmaps.com, use the JScott19 promo code to get a 20% discount on all orders there on OnX Maps, which I've grown to really, really like. And in this case of Unit 10, if you have OnX Maps, you will be able to use aerial. You'll be able to tell where the private land is, the public land, and I found it to be a very valuable tool. Guys, I want to talk about Unit 7. You talk about 7, 8, and 9. I want to go through them briefly and have you guys give kind of an expectation for the archery hunt, the early rifle hunt, and the late hunt in each unit. So why don't we go ahead and start with Unit 10. Let's talk archery. I don't care which one of you can trade off if you want. But
we go 10.
What can people expect for archery, as far as what type of quality of bull on a year like this? And give me a range, say, 275 to 310 with a chance at XYZ?
Okay. Well, I think this year we're going to see an uptrend in the quality, obviously, compared to last year. We know of a couple bulls last year that were, we knew what we thought they were in 17, and we saw them dip down 30, 40. One bull we thought was maybe 50 inches down last year. So provided those bulls are alive, we could see them back up to where they were, even better. One of those bulls was 400 in 2017, and he was probably 350 last year. So with the precipitation outlook we have, I think there'll be some big bulls that are 370, 380 that are available for archery hunters and early rifle hunters to kill. I think realistically, though, a 340 to 360 range, I think there's going to be quite a few of those kind of bulls that the guys will be chasing around with the bow and arrow on the early hunt.
Okay. I assume the same thing for the early rifle hunts is, chance at maybe a 370, but a lot of 340 to 360 type bulls if they're not broken. What about the late hunt in Unit 10? I know a lot, I think there's 500 tags. A lot of people look at that late hunt in Unit 10. What are your thoughts as far as a range of quality on those late hunts in 10?
Well, there'll be the same type of bull. The bulls that survive archery and early rifle and the muzzleloader hunt, those bulls will still be there, but your chances are cut down considerably, getting them killed that time of year. So, usually I tell guys on that late hunt to, have expectations of a really good bull for the late hunt. It's going to be a 320 to 340 type bull. To kill a 350 bull on the late hunt it's a pretty tall task. It's not that they're not there. It's just your chances on getting an opportunity on a 350 plus bull is pretty limited. They're nowhere near as vulnerable as they are in the early season.
Okay, and Lee, what about the late archery hunt? And you mentioned the muzzleloader hunt in 10. Expectations for that late archery hunt. From my mind, it's after the rut, and it's a very difficult hunt. They're, basically hiding and laying up. But as far as trophy quality on that late archery and late muzzleloader hunt, what do you think?
I think, it'll be the same kind of bulls are going to be there that'll be there for the late hunt. Once the rut's done, the breakage is over with. Bulls break during the rut. You're going to have to sift through broken bulls. I don't care what year it is in 9 and 10, but I think you can expect to hunt a 320, 330 bull is going to be maybe a 340 bull, be a good bull on the muzzleloader. That late archery hunt, that's I've seen guys make mistakes and put in for that and not realize it was a late hunt. I feel bad for those guys, but that late hunt can be a good hunt, but it takes a real gritty type bow hunter to pull that off. There's been some guys I know that have killed some good bulls on that hunt, but it's not a good hunt unless you've got a lot of grit and a lot of time to put in scouting.
Okay, Craig, let's move to Unit 9, talk about the archery hunt expectations, and we still got to do antelope, so let's just wrap through these pretty good.
So Unit 9, I think it's the 340 to 360 on the archery hunt for, type of bull you can kind of expect to be hunting. I think possibilities there to, hunt a 380 plus bull. Obviously some of the best genetics in the world. And I think that same thing for the early rifle as well. Unit 9, a lot of that is dependent upon, so flat. Are they rutting hard? Because you can bet anywhere around the limited knobs that they're at, there's going to be some big glass going with outfitters and stuff. So the advantage there is if you're a DIY hunter and they're going pretty good, you probably have just as good a chance in Unit 9 as anywhere to kill a big bull. On the late hunt to me in Unit 9 is drastically worse than Unit 10. I like 7 and 8 better than I like Unit 9, not because there's not big bulls there, but just because there's not a lot of glassing and canyons there. I think expectations, if you kill a unbroken, 306 point, you're doing pretty darn good there. Obviously, I'm sure there's one or two, 350 plus bulls that get killed every year there from people that drive in the roads or bumble into them. And then some of that is also dependent upon how dry it is. Sitting water. Same with the archery elk hunt in Unit 9. I think it can be a good hunt for somebody that's really gritty and you're able to sit water if it's dry. If it's not dry in Unit 9, I don't think it's the best hunt. I mean, I wouldn't burn more than a few points if you're a resident. If you're a non-resident, you're trying to hit a fastball off Randy Johnson to kill a big bull on that hunt. So I guess if I could simplify it and analogize that, that's how I would say it. So if you can hit, maybe you got a chance, but otherwise don't apply.
Okay, let's talk about 7 and 8.
I'll take 7 if you take 8, please.
Okay. Go ahead. 7.
Okay, Unit 7. I have had 3 tags in there myself over the last 20 years, 25 years. I hunted on antelope hunt in there last year on that country, especially on the west side. I'm not going to talk about 7 East because I don't like 7 East, but 7 West is a lot more open in the pinyon juniper country because of the bark beetle. I think it's still a pretty good unit. I think on the early archery hunts, a 320 to a 340 you can expect to kind of be hunting that type of bull with limited bugling action. Towards the tail end of the hunt, I think it's going to get a little bit better. And I think there'll be a couple bulls probably killed in that, 350 to 370 range, and maybe 1 or 2 bulls in that 370 plus range. The late hunt in there, I think, is at least you can glass. It's just a lot of elk and a lot of people condensed into a little area. And it seems like a lot of those bulls, the bigger bulls, move out of that country. And some of it also, snow. If we get snow on the late hunt, it can be a little bit muddy and wet and hard to travel in that country. But I think on that late hunt, if you can realistically kill a 280 to 300 bull, you're doing pretty good. Very few bulls in that 330 plus range are going to get killed on that late hunt.
Okay, Unit 8.
Yeah, for Unit 8, I think the size expectation's going to be similar to 7 West. Unit 8's got some of the coolest country there is for elk country in the state, but it's popular. A lot of the locals hunt it hard every year. So Unit 8, you got to do your homework. You got to catch a little luck. But I think, a 280 to 300 inch bull on the late hunt is going to be a pretty reasonable expectation. There's always some big bulls in Unit 8, though, because of the type of country it has. It's got some thick carpet cedar country that the bulls can learn how to survive in there without getting killed every year. So there's always a sleeper chance that a guy could kill a 340, 350 bull on a late hunt. The early hunts, they're a little better. You could hunt 340, 350 type bulls on the archery hunt this year, I think, and there might be a sleeper chance of seeing something big, 360, 370, 380. Some of the biggest bulls killed with a bow have come out of 8 over the years, so there's just not a lot of them.
Guys, that's an awesome breakdown for elk. Obviously, you guys both love antelope and both have, anybody that calls me about antelope, I tell them to call you guys. You guys know more about antelope. You forgot more about antelope than I know. Why don't you guys break down the antelope this year, the units that you like, and obviously if people want to talk to you guys more about elk or antelope, they can get a hold of you. But go through the units that you guys like, talk a little bit about each unit, quality, etc.
Well, for antelope, it's, our favorite units and what we like to hunt in is kind of tough because they're hard to get drawn in, and there's such a limited amount of tags for guys. But we like the 19B units, the 18 units. They have some of the best genetics and limited amount of tags. So there's always some really big bucks available in those units each year. Unit 10, there's great genetics in there, and there's always a few good bucks, but the hunt pressure's pretty great in that unit. We end up taking guys there every year just because there's always good bucks to kill. A couple other units that are pretty good, but very limited, and a guy's gotta understand there might be only a couple good bucks in is Unit 9. We'll have a few good bucks. 7's been kind of struggling, but once in a while there's a good buck in there. 5B is probably one of the better units that's got a fair amount of tags. It and Unit 10 are probably the two that have the most tags and the best drawing odds for guys to kill a buck, an 82-inch minimum buck.
I think
archery.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
I think everybody just goes with Unit 10 and 5B because there is so many. You're going to see more antelope, but they're kind of wide open white country, and there's I hunted Unit 7 last year with one of our hunters, and that was tough in places just to even find antelope. It was very discouraging, but doesn't mean, I think some of the best bucks or opportunity are in tougher places, maybe like that, because they get skimmed over, and you might find a sleeper that people are just discouraged, don't find the antelope there, so or don't see them like they see them in Unit 10 or a 5B, or they just don't see them as regular. And I know for myself last year scouting, it was very discouraging to scout that unit, but you still get the sense that they're in some of these units that have these lowers like a 9, a 7, the 18s. 19B has just got awesome genetics. Lee's hunted it. It's very popular, for auction and raffle hunters and guides to be scouting in that unit just because of genetics. But I still think in some of these lower density class units that are really hard to scout these antelope, I still think that's where a sleeper buck, really big buck, can be found. But you have to go find them.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, different than a lot of animals that we hunt, like you could potentially have a trophy antelope at 3 years old, potentially, and certainly 4 and 5, whereas, elk, sometimes they need to get up, 7, 8, 9 years old. Deer need to get up a lot. In other words, you could have a buck that's been skimmed over for 2 years, and all of a sudden he's a giant because at 4 years old he could be at maximum potential. Am I right?
Yeah,
you're right.
Antelope do renew their age class a lot sooner than anything else, or sooner than anything else. It takes, in my opinion, I think an antelope still has to get to 4 years old to really reach their prime, but they can definitely reach their prime sooner than a deer or an elk, and so I think that does happen. You can see a buck that doesn't look like much last year, but then he can really blossom in 1 year's time. And so that's kind of an exciting thing about antelope, is every year you don't know what you're going to find out there.
For sure. Well, guys, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. I want to give you a chance if you have any final concluding thoughts, and also make sure that people know how they can reach out to you. Also link it up in the show notes of this podcast. But go ahead and let me know if you have any concluding thoughts or any final statements. And it's always great talking to both of you. I always enjoy seeing the success that you guys have in the fall, and I get a lot of feedback from hunters that have hunted with both of you guys and your guides and talk about what quality guys you are. So that hats off to you guys.
Well, thanks for having us on, Jay. We appreciate the opportunity, and we look forward to this hunting season, and hopefully it'll be a little better than last year when it comes to the antler growth. I'll let Craig
Sounds good.
follow up.
Yeah, Jay, thanks for having us on, and I hope everybody watched the Super Bowl yesterday.
you had to throw that right hook in there, didn't you? Hey, speaking about that, I sent you a text I don't know, 6 minutes to go. I'm like, that was an impressive drive. And instead of Craig yes, it was, he's like, 4 quarters, man, it ain't over. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. But after the game, I'm sure you were able to enjoy it a little bit, huh?
Man, Lee and I have had many conversations, and my dad was here for the Super Bowl, and he's like, Patriots are going to win by 20, and I'm like, I just don't feel that way about anything. I just don't know how you can feel that way, and I think that, I don't know, that's why they're so good, is they're just, every game, it's a new game. Every game is a new game. It doesn't matter what you did in the past, and, I know Lee and I talked about that, with what we do and stuff, every client's a new client. It doesn't matter what you do in the past. You just got to keep grinding it out. Things are a lot harder, So I don't know. When you send me that text, I'm listening to my dad, and I'm like, yeah, where's your 20 points at, Dad? They're not winning by 20, and so you don't feel that way,
So, let me ask you a question, Craig. Is the fact that you like Tom Brady so much, is it the fact that he's a 6-time Super Bowl champion, or is it the fact that he was, struggled in college, didn't get drafted high, and he was just this gangly kid who was an underdog? And is it the story of Tom Brady? The people all know the Tom Brady that's won the 6 Super Bowls, but is it the thing that you love about him so much, the fact that he was basically a nobody and he rose to the top?
I mean, that's what everybody's always like, I'm rooting for the underdog. I'm always rooting for the underdog, and that's primarily why I like Tom Brady, is because he is, ultimately, he's got the worst combine score ever for a quarterback. I mean, his stats are crap, and he's long and gangly and just all of the above. And, even today, everybody talks about him, and they're like, yeah, he's done, or he doesn't have the strongest arm, or he's not athletic. And they're still arguing whether or not he's the greatest of all time. And what it comes down to is, he is the greatest of all time, and it's not because on paper he's athletically the most athletic. So the position of quarterback is not who's the most athletic, because if it was who's the most athletic, Michael Jordan would be the greatest of all time as a quarterback. But it's who's the best quarterback, and you got to have the mental side too. It's not just physical. And you got to have the work ethic as well. So I mean, how can you not love somebody that does that? That just grinds and grinds and grinds, and they don't win them all, But I don't know. So that's what I love about Tom Brady, is he just. And I know there's other people out there that are like that, but he's just at the highest stage, the biggest stage, and he goes about his business confidently. He's confident, but he's not cocky about it either. He just goes back.
I would say that he's about as humble as they could come for a 6-time Super Bowl champion.
And, that's the thing that I like about him. I like how he carries himself, and I like his work ethic, and I like how the fact that, it's like people debate whether he's the greatest of all time, and it's like, in my mind, there is no debate. You can't even debate it, but the reason you're debating it is he's not out there telling everybody, I'm the best that ever was. And, whereas there's other people that, maybe are more boisterous of how good they are. He just has that inner sense of, we're going to grind it out as a team, and I'm going to play my role. And You know, I'm no Patriots fan at all. I don't hate the Patriots, but I do like those stories where you've got the guy that isn't supposed to be the guy, and it's clear and evident that he is.
Yeah, no, that's just what amazing. It's amazing. You know, I always relate that to hunting in the same way, and Lee was talking about on that late elk hunt, it takes a gritty, grind type of guy to get it done on that hunt, and let's just be honest, there's only a small percentage of people that are really like that and understand that 99.9% of the times it's going to suck, you know. It's that 0.1% when it's you've got to be ready, and you just got to keep going back and getting your butt kicked, and then boom, it happens, or it doesn't. You know what I mean? And then you got to do it again, and I think that's the whole thing about the Patriots is and Bill Belichick is he's the culprit behind it all. He said, no, we're on to the next one. Like, that one meant nothing because this is a new game, and so many people don't look at life that way. They look at it as, you know, I don't know, like celebrate because they won, and then, you know, that should carry them through to the next victory, and that's just not the case, you know. So anyway,
I think one of the things when I text both of you guys during a hunting season, you two are notorious for like how's it going? You're like, oh, we're getting killed, like we're just getting smashed, and the next thing I get is a text photo of some giant animal on the ground, and I'm like, yeah, But that's what people don't realize is that what we do is we grind and grind and grind, and it's, you know, half the time sitting with your glassing stuck because you're getting killed, and then all of a sudden it comes together in a moment, and there you get your trophy photo, and then everyone the next year that wants to book, they're like, yeah, I want to go with that guy, and you're like, well, yeah, but you know, 99% of the time we're just grinding away, and then it does happen because we stay with it. Whereas I have people that come and hunt with me, and they think the whole time it's just, oh yeah, Jay's just spotting giants every single day, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. You know, the majority of the time we're just getting railed, and then from persistence, you finally get in a situation where it's like, okay, it all came together, and it happens. And so I always crack up when I, you know, text you guys hunting season. I'm like, how's it going? I mean, I can predict the answer. It's horrible. It sucks. We're not getting it done. And then the next thing I get is this giant thick picture of a 390-inch bull, and I'm like, yeah, it sucks. All right, yeah.
I mean, you're in it. You're in it. It does. I mean, this year was a prime example. I mean, gosh, man, we ended up killing, you know, in that camp 5 out of the 6 or something like that, huh? Or 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was. If you would have told me that was going to happen on a year like we had last year, I'd have said you're nuts. Like, it was probably our best harvest rate on archery elk we've ever had, and solid bulls too for the year it was. So if you would have told me that was going to happen, I'd have said you were nuts. But
it didn't feel like you were doing it at the time. You know, to me, it didn't feel like...
we felt like you always feel like you're getting your ass kicked, but that's just the way hunting is, you know. Like Jay was saying, 99% of the time you're failing and getting your ass kicked, but for that one little highlight, that one thing that makes the highlight reel, you know. I try and explain that to clients more and more now than ever. You know, it's like that one guy we had issues with on the late hunt that you were aware of. You know, he thought showing up for the hunt, it was going to be a constant highlight reel. And that's one of the perspectives I told him. I said, you know, when you watch ESPN, do you expect them to show the whole game, all the downtime on a baseball game? No, you see the strikeout, you see the home run, the grand slam. You don't see the whole other 2 hours of the game. Right. I said in hunting, it's the same thing. You know, when you're looking at Instagram, you're seeing the highlight reel. You're seeing that 1% of the highlight reel that happens, you know, and the rest of the stuff is a grind. So
yeah, it is. Well, you two are the biggest grinders I know. Craig, I do have a question before I let you both go. Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters, I want you to tell everyone where they can reach out and find you, but also Predator Exclusives is right in the middle of your season. How is the season going so far? The short version of how is the season going with Predator Exclusives?
It's going good. Got some hunts this week. Got a 2-day hunt tomorrow, and then got another 2-day hunt later this week. It's going good. We just have some limited spots because I'm coaching softball, high school softball this year, and so we got limited spots available in March. February is pretty much full. We've called in several bobcats. I got a couple lion hunts scheduled for this month, but it's going good. Everybody's at least been, getting opportunities, and I think the best day we've had is a client killed 7 coyotes in one day, and I think they called in like 14 coyotes, and so it's been going good. The colder weather has helped. I'm interested to see how the week goes this week because of the stormy weather. Tomorrow they're going to run into some rain and some wind, so that's going to be tough, but I already told the client to just be ready for a kind of a, grind or downer day tomorrow and be ready on Wednesday for after the storm front pushes through. So
good stuff. ExclusivePursuits.com, I assume.
ExclusivePursuitOutfitters.com, and then you can find us on Instagram. Just search Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters, and on Facebook as well, and on YouTube. So, but Instagram's the kind of primary source. And you can go to our website too and sign up for our e-newsletter. We put out probably about 4 or 5 newsletters a year. We don't pound guys with stuff, just simple reminders, maybe some drought information, maybe some highlights of what clients took. And then the same with PredatorExclusives.com. So that's how you can find us.
You mean you guys don't sell T-shirts and hats and jelly of the Monks Club memberships?
Man, I'm not into hammering on anybody else but myself. So, no, we don't.
All right, fellas. All right, guys. Love you both. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing, and I look forward to seeing your success this fall. Okay. God bless you both.
All right.
All right, man.
Thanks again, Jay.
Bye. Bye.